On the evening of January 10, 1921, a fire broke out in the U.S. Commerce Department building in Washington, D.C. This building held the records of the Census Bureau, including the paper volumes from the 1890 U.S. Census. At about 5 p.m., a watchman saw thin lines of smoke coming from the basement. Inside that basement were huge stacks of census books. Within minutes, thick black smoke was pouring out of the building. The fire department was called right away, and by 5:30 p.m., 3 alarms had been sounded. Firefighters had trouble even reaching the fire. The smoke was so thick that they had to cut holes through the first floor just to reach the basement. Once they did, they sprayed 20 powerful streams of water into the room where the census was stored. Outside, nearly 10,000 people stood in the cold, watching as water flooded the building. The floor above the basement was made of concrete, which stopped the flames from spreading upward. By 9:45 p.m., the fire was finally under control. Firefighters stayed late into the night to put out hotspots. 3 firefighters were taken to the hospital for breathing in smoke. Newspaper reports later said 5 people died, including a building engineer and a reporter who had rushed to the scene. When workers were finally allowed back inside, they saw a terrible sight. Water stood ankle-deep on the floor. Wooden shelves had fallen over. Census books were soaked, blackened, and falling apart. The 1890 census had been stored just outside a fireproof vault, right where the firefighters had sprayed the most water. One report later said those books were first in the path of the firemen. The director of the Census Bureau, Sam L. Rogers, inspected the damage the next day. He said about 25% of the 1890 census was completely destroyed. Most of the rest was badly damaged by smoke and water. He hoped that some pages could be saved, but warned it would take 2 to 3 years just to dry and copy what remained. His chief clerk, T.J. Fitzgerald, was more honest. He told reporters the census was certain to be absolutely ruined, and that water-soaked books could not be made readable again. No one ever found out what caused the fire. Some blamed bad wiring. Others thought it could have been a cigarette or a match. A few people even claimed it was done on purpose, but no proof was ever found. What was clear was that America's records had been poorly protected. Newspapers were furious. The Washington Post warned that even the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were still stored in unsafe wooden cabinets. The fire helped push the government to finally build a national archives, but for the 1890 census, it was already too late. After the fire, census workers tried to save what they could. They moved the damaged books to storage and opened windows to help dry them. This allowed mold to grow, which made things even worse. By May 1921, the new census director, William M. Stewart, reported that the census books were sitting in piles in a warehouse, wet, mildewed, and unreadable. He had them moved back to the Commerce Building in hopes that some pages could be saved and rebound. Only small fragments survived. Then rumors began to spread. Some officials were talking about destroying what was left. Genealogists and historians were shocked. Groups like the National Genealogical Society and the Daughters of the American Revolution sent letters of protest. The National Genealogical Society passed a resolution demanding that the records be saved. They warned that 6/7 of the surviving records could still be useful if preserved. They sent their protests to Herbert Hoover, the Secretary of Commerce. Hoover said there was no plan to destroy the census, and he argued that the government needed a fireproof archives building. For a while, the records were spared. They were placed back in storage. Then they were forgotten. In December 1932, a government clerk made a list of records that were no longer needed. On that list was Population Schedules 1890. The list went to the Librarian of Congress, whose job was to protect important historical records. The librarian did not stop it. On February 21, 1933, Congress approved the destruction of the remaining census. One day later, President Herbert Hoover laid the cornerstone of the new National Archives building. In 1934, the Commerce Department quietly destroyed what was left. A handwritten note later said the records were destroyed without approval from the geographer, but it was too late. 30 years of American family history was gone. To historians and family researchers, the loss of the 1890 census was not just a paperwork problem, it was a disaster. The 1890 census had been the most detailed census ever taken in the United States. For the first time, it recorded not just names and ages, but whether someone was married, how many children they had, where they were born, whether they were immigrants, and if they had served in the Civil War. It also included information about disability, home ownership, and military pensions. It captured the country at a turning point. The western frontier was closing. Millions of immigrants were arriving from Europe. African American families were building new lives after slavery. Railroads and factories were reshaping where people lived and worked. All of that was written down in the 1890 census, and almost all of it was destroyed. When the final destruction was carried out in 1934, genealogists were heartbroken. One called it an act of unforgivable negligence, and another said the nation had lost a whole generation of memory. For family historians, the damage was immediate and painful. There is no federal census between 1880 and 1900. That creates a 20-year gap where millions of people simply disappear from the official record. Children who were born in the 1880s should have appeared as young adults in 1890, but they never do. Elderly parents who were alive in 1880 are often gone by 1900, leaving no clue of where or how they died. This missing census became known as the census that got away. For more than a century, genealogists have struggled with that empty space. Only about 6,160 names survive today out of nearly 63 million people who were counted in 1890. Those few pages are now stored in the National Archives and on microfilm. Researchers still search them, hoping to find a miracle, a single ancestor who escaped the flames. Most never do. One part of the 1890 census did survive. It is called the Special Veterans Schedule. This was a separate census taken for the Pension Office. It listed Union Civil War veterans and their widows. It recorded their unit, rank, injuries, and where they were living in 1890. Because it was stored in a different place, it was not damaged in the fire. About 75,000 names remain in those schedules. For families with Union veterans, this is often the only official record showing where a person lived in 1890. Even though Confederate soldiers were not meant to be included, some were accidentally recorded. That means even a few Southern families can find their ancestors here. A small number of regular population schedules also survived by chance. Pages from Alabama, Georgia, Illinois, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, South Dakota, and Texas were misfiled or stored elsewhere and escaped destruction. These fragments were discovered years later and added to the National Archives. Together, these scraps are all that remain of the 1890 census. Because the census is gone, genealogists have learned to become detectives. One of the most important tools is the state census. Some states like New York, New Jersey, Colorado, Florida, Nebraska, and New Mexico took their own censuses around the 1890s. New York's 1892 state census is especially important because it almost perfectly replaces the missing federal one. Another powerful resource is the city directory. These were like old phone books. They listed adults by name, address, and job. Many cities printed them every year. That means a family can be followed from 1889 to 1891, even without the census. Tax lists and land records show who owned or rented property in 1890. Voting records show who was registered to vote. Church records show baptism, marriages, and burials, and newspapers show obituaries, weddings, and social news. In many places, historical societies even created 1890 census substitute books, pulling together all these sources to rebuild what the census would have shown. Genealogists also compare the 1880 and 1900 censuses. If someone appears in both, their age and location can often be estimated for 1890. In recent years, DNA testing has added another tool, helping link families when paper records are missing. None of these sources can fully replace what was lost, but together they allow researchers to bring families back from the silence. If this story mattered to you, it's because somewhere in the 1890 census was someone you care about. If you're trying to fill that gap in your own tree, subscribe to my channel for more tips and help with finding the records that still survive. And if you have an ancestor who disappears between 1880 and 1900, you're not alone, and this community is here to help. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your research, and I'll see you in the next one.